Here's the word coming in from Saugata Gupta from Marico. He believes the worst is over for the FMCG industry and is also foreseeing FY24 volume growth, which he feels is going to be better than FY23.
India is also a market compared to a lot of other emerging economies where the domestic consumption is the big driver of growth. And I see no reason to ever suspect that there will be stress on domestic consumption. Coming to the layoffs again, there are some companies and a number of jobs, that is completely insignificant compared to what's happening in some other parts of the world. Okay.
Sure.
Number two, I think the kind of the productivity-linked, incentive-led manufacturing investment that is happening, it's going to create far more jobs. And therefore, I am not at all concerned about this issue. I think what is more concerning could be if the monsoon doesn't play out.
Yeah.
But I am actually, as I said, that India's story is very much intact as far as I am concerned.
Okay, that's great. In fact, you're saying that, okay, these are things that happen on a normal basis, so one should not take that seriously in terms of impacting consumption. It's been a quite a tough ride for all industries, because with 2020 COVID, then recovery, then the global factors, all of that, and now of course we're hoping that things stabilize. You've yourself talked about the fact that there has been a tremendous shift in consumer behavior because of what we've all gone through as humanity. My question to you is now, as things normalize and with WHO finally giving us, a green signal saying we can put COVID behind us, the fear of psychosis really coming down. Are you seeing those behavior patterns sticking, or are we going back to what we have lived until 2020 hit us?
I think in some cases it's a return, but one or two structural shifts have happened. One in terms of, I think, adoption of digital. I'm not necessarily saying e-commerce, but adoption of digital as a means for, making a choice, interaction with, I think the consumer today is far more comfortable in doing digital. I think that's a permanent change, I would say.
Okay.
And in the case of e-commerce or digital adoption, I think what would have happened in 5-6 years has got compressed in 2-3 years. So there has been a significant acceleration and there is not any reversal.
Sure.
The second thing I would say is that people are little more concerned about health. Because if you look at COVID, I think people who had a certain condition were far more vulnerable to, COVID.
Yeah.
And therefore there is, earlier days, maybe a lot of people used to depend on destiny as far as health is concerned. I think far more conscious this one to health.
Yeah.
And therefore healthy eating, a little bit of better, in a healthier way of living is something I would see. That doesn't mean that suddenly you will see an exponential growth in nutraceutical and functional foods, But at least healthier or better for you is something which is a trend we are seeing.
For instance, you also have these influencers who have suddenly also become very big. And while the sector was looking at, let's say, health foods or healthy for me foods as taking off, at least in urban India, there are now people like Rutuja Devekar who are very staunchly talking about going back to eating, how you did in the olden days, how your grandmothers and your grandfathers taught you. So there is a strong force also that, so don't get carried away with avocado, don't get carried away with quinoa, all of that is also happening, right? And there is also that change happening. So as Indians who love our food the way we are comfortable with, are we really being able to do that shift?
I think you are absolutely right.
And taste.
I think, firstly, you're right. The Indian consumer will not compromise taste for health, okay? And therefore, as you see in our food also, we are very clear that we have to deliver on taste. Number two, anything we offer, you have to offer an Indianized version. To give you an example, why has masala oats been successful and breakfast cereals as a category hasn't penetrated in India? It's because we realize that this is a Western eating habit. Indians like it crunchy, Indians like it hot and not cold, they like it savory. You convert that into from a cold breakfast into a tastier yet healthier in between meals. The second big thing, people are talking about ghee, for example, and
Superfood.
ghee is as good as an olive oil, okay? The third thing, I think millets, and that's one of our big drivers of our
Sure.
growth in the future. And millets is something which our forefathers and everybody had eaten, and that's good. So it's important that we don't forget that the Indian habits of the past, and you need not always adapt to something, because our metabolism, our bodies and everything is tuned to something which of the past. And
Yeah.
therefore, the adoption of the Indian way of living, an Indian healthier way of life. So it's extremely important. In India, unless in food, if you don't massify it,
Yeah.
and if you don't Indianize it, you don't get a scale.
Okay. I want to talk to you a little bit about what we've seen as a phenomenon, but of course, I'm not sure if it is sustainable, and that is quick commerce. So, do you see in India, while this was great during COVID and all of that, and our headspace was somewhere else, as we come back to reality and as we start doing personal accounting, do you see Indians taking on to quick commerce as it is projected? Or do you see this as a difficult space to crack in terms of just these players becoming more profitable? And also give me some insight about, like, if you have Marico's portfolio on these things, what is the offtake compared to, let's say, a modern trade versus a kirana with different distribution channels?
So I see quick commerce playing a role in a top up. It obviously, you can't do your planned groceries unless you really run out of something. It's an emergency. It also delivers convenience, because at the end of the day, if you order from somewhere else, are you there at home to pick it up, or so it gives you that convenience. Obviously, certain categories do well, like for example foods, snacking, you need a soft drink or a juice. So there are certain categories that are much more prone to e-commerce. Even we are seeing, for example, and if you really look at it, lower AOV items especially of food is far better on quick commerce than to do on e-commerce sites, general e-commerce sites, because grocery is about large packs and all that. So I think it has a role to play. Now the question is on the profitability. I'm not the expert on profitability, but all I can say is that I think we need not compete to deliver in 10 minutes, 15 minutes. I'm sure the consumer can wait for
30
half an
minutes,
hour. And
yeah.
if there is a cost value equation to that, it's fine.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
but I think it has a role to play. And see, India is such a big market, and I keep on telling people that anything is an and. For example, people predicting that GT will die because e-commerce modern trade is going. Indian kirana is, they are very smart. They are adopting themselves. They are transforming. So it's always an and not an or. And I think similarly, whether it's cash and carry, whether it's B2B, the only thing I would say in the overall organized retail, I don't think India will be very difficult for the extremely convenient stores, that chain convenience stores, because as I said, the Indian kirana is a very, very, what I call very, very savvy this one. So even organized retail, I guess the large box format has a much better, long-term, propensity to, grow than a mid-format kind of a thing, because India real estate is expensive.
Yeah.
People cost is sometimes you think it's not expensive, but actually it's relatively expensive. So the infrastructure is unique. So I think there are certain things will do well, certain things will not do well. But as far as quick commerce is concerned, when it's with the role of as a top-up, role of impulse food, I think there's a role there.
When you're talking about this convenience store format, am I getting you right when I assume you're talking about the 7-Eleven type of?
Kind of a format. I'm just saying that if you look at it in a lot of developed markets or in Southeast Asia, they have completely replaced the pop and mom store. It's unlikely to happen in India at all.
Sure, sure. Having said that, you did make a statement where you said recently that you feel general trade needs to perform a little better. What did you mean by that?
No. See what happened in the last few quarters, if you look at it, that since this general trade has declined in our case, and I think it's not doing that well in FMCG because of two reasons. One, in the urban, they're getting squeezed a little bit because of e-commerce and modern trade.